This is the Real Mom Hub. Keep listening for relatable content. Okay, pour. Oh,
Came out of my freezer. But
Out of the can? Seriously?
Well,
Have I taught you
listen,
nothing?
but they have the little nitro ball in it, right?
it's a Guinness because it's St. Patrick's Day.
You can get Guinness in a bottle, girlfriend.
Do you know what? So most people who like Guinness prefer the can.
Yes.
I actually really prefer the bottle. It's way better.
Oh, I like the can.
Oh, the can's got that little nitro ball, and I'm like, fancy, whatever. I don't
Oh,
care.
I love
but
it. It makes me feel
See?
bougie.
It taste isn't as good, though.
I put mine in my Hofbräu Munich mug.
Yeah. Just
Because you're so cool. Hey, cheers, everybody. Thanks for
Hey,
being
cheers.
here.
Do you know what this 50-year-old lady, almost 50-year-old lady, Prost, Nastravia, cheers.
Oh.
Okay, so I don't know if you two know this. In June, I go to Guyana, South America.
I'm just hearing mutterings all of a sudden. Yes, tell.
So Guyana, South America, and I'm educating you because I didn't know. I just signed up for, I just went into this teacher stuff, looking at stuff for different trips to further educate myself. And I was just looking at dates that wouldn't hit Hans's 16th birthday, wouldn't hit my 50th birthday, and wouldn't hit my seeing my mother-in-law. And I picked Guyana. I'm like, I don't know, it's in June, whatever. It's this very tiny country, very unexplored. I think there's one street through the entire country. So once I arrive, I'll be in a little pedal pusher plane, like a 12-seater plane to go see the different locations. 85, high humidity, village of 300 and less. Yeah.
Wow. What are
That's
you doing?
going to be, yeah.
So I will be in classes for 10 days and I will be meeting with the locals and I'll have my own little field stuff that I have to do. But yeah, that's how I'm going to be 50 and powerful.
That is so, yeah.
That's
Malaria
epic.
meds. Oh yeah.
That's amazing. Wait, how long are you there?
10 days. Oh, no internet, no electricity.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. It's going to be, yeah.
I think that you set me up perfectly for your intro, so let's introduce everyone to you.
All right, introduce me away.
Auntie Lisa is in the house. She's one of our dad's 5 siblings. You're the youngest of the 3 sisters. Yeah.
Yes.
So you can always trust her to bring the energy, speak her mind, and be the first to join a spontaneous adventure. But it's always better if the adventure is planned ahead of time with an Excel sheet so you can maximize on all the opportunities available to you and capitalize on all the fun.
It's so funny to see your guys' perspective of me.
On family hikes, she's the one loudly whooping with joy at the top of a summit and getting soaked on the descent, sliding down snowfields on her butt. She happens to her life, not the other way around.
Oh.
Hence why I'm going to Guyana, South America.
Yes. It was pretty perfect.
Yes.
So thanks for being here.
I love being here. So you guys know my husband. He is the
Our
bomb.
uncle, yes.
We met backpacking in California for other people. So we like doing stuff. We like being outside. We like being adventurous. Like people make fun of us because we have very little stuff. Our kids get very little presents, but we go on trips. And so he understandably is highly jealous of said trip to Guyana, South America. And he is being so cool and doing things like, what kind of camera does she need? Because I won't have a cell phone. Or, yeah. Or
what
Lisa.
A great wingman. Are you kidding me?
Yes. Everything, like, I just want to put that out there. Like everything we talk about, everything I do, I couldn't do it without my wingman. I really couldn't.
That.
I'm going to get all sappy, but it's true.
And I just have to add that when we're hanging out with you, you bicker like your high school friends often. There's so much camaraderie between you two, which is so fun because you also make sex jokes. This is clearly not a platonic relationship.
Oh, no. I have 2 stories.
Okay, wait, say one.
Okay, so the first one is that I don't associate Auntie Lisa with being sappy at all. So,
Oh, I do.
oh,
You don't
funny.
remember when
Okay.
she was dating Uncle Christian?
Well, that's my tie-in. Okay, that's my,
what?
yes.
Oh, Shania Twain.
Oh,
Yes!
that too. But no. So I'm in high school, so I don't even know what it's like to be sappy. I was called the ice queen anyway, so I was like anti-sappy. And we go
Oh,
to
that's
see.
horrible.
Oh, my family called me that.
I'm sorry. That's horrible.
So we go to see the new Pride and Prejudice.
Your mom and I, and for some reason,
Yeah, I don't
I
even.
must have still been living in Chicago.
Okay, maybe that. And we don't even go to see movies, but somehow the four of us go to see the new Pride and Prejudice. Auntie Lisa is just sitting there sobbing. It's so beautiful.
Well,
And then it comes out that she's in this relationship, and one thing leads to another. Now she's sappy, I guess. But I just remember sitting there thinking, what is happening? Why is she crying? Will I ever feel like this? I don't even what. And I still go back to that. Like now that I have feelings, sometimes I'm like, I now can relate to Auntie Lisa sobbing in the movie theater.
Now, let's all clarify, too. I was having an international relationship at the time, too.
Yeah.
Where we
well,
got to
and
see.
it was the one. I mean, you married him.
Well,
You were
yeah,
on the path
17.
of
We're on 17
seriousness.
years. 18
Yeah.
years. 18 years next year.
Yeah.
So funny. Okay,
Yeah.
That was
story number 2, maybe we'll edit it out. They like to talk about sex, right? Okay, so we're in
I didn't realize we like to talk about sex.
So we're in I didn't either. Except for the story is about you talking about sex when we're in Montana.
Which one? Oh! You guys might need to edit my voice and take my volume down like 5 decibels.
It's my wedding anniversary, right? So as we
and this
do,
is a family trip. You're talking about Montana, where there are like
yeah,
almost 30
family reunion.
of us.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yes,
but Kevin and I
yes.
had our
in
own
one
room.
building.
So of course we like do.
You don't need to edit
deed.
this story. This is one of my favorite stories ever.
Maybe you should tell it. All I know, it's our wedding anniversary. We have sex, as we do, with all of our family members under the same roof. And then the next morning, Auntie Lisa is like, I can't tell if she's so thrilled or mad because she's like, we're in the mood. And I hadn't seen my husband because he'd been on a work trip or something. And they're like really getting frisky. And then suddenly in the bedroom above, where they know that their niece and nephew are staying, they hear, ee, ee, ee. So we were having simultaneous sex. Is there anything more beautiful?
No, what was funny was we finished and then we heard.
Oh, okay. That makes it way better. I think I feel kind of guilty because I was like, oh God, that would get me out of the mood. Like,
And I know you both of you have children, but it was immaculate conception. You two aren't having sex. It's just kind of it's still kind of weird it's weird for me to think of you having sex.
that's so fair.
That's really funny.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways.
Oh wait, did you want to ask our opening question, Callie?
Yeah, I do. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So it's not about sex, but we could make it about sex, probably.
Oh, I went on a walk with Baba and she was talking about sex with Grandpa. I'm like, man, after 60 years, I hope I can do that.
Me too. Goals.
They're great.
Oh.
Grandpa was alluding to that 2 weeks ago with me.
Oh yeah,
he was like really nervous about one of his. She's like, "Yeah, I can't do that. Annie will lock her bedroom door. We can't have that."
Okay, I'm just going to move us right along then. So, you're talking to a fresh generation of budding matriarchs. So, what is something that you hope that we as women celebrate?
Each other. Like that's like the buzzword right now is women supporting women, but you don't talk the talk stereotypically. I don't know what it is about women. See, now we're going to get all serious. Sorry. So
We can hold multitudes. Let's do it all.
I worked in a place where it was mainly women for a while. And if it's mainly women without men to offset us, we bring the worst out in each other. And I don't know why, and I don't know how to stop it. and they tend to go for one person, and it's almost like the imitation claws come out, and they don't even know, like the nicest people in the world, all of a sudden you don't even recognize them.
Mm.
And just to set the stage, you are a teacher. You've been an educator for
I've been
decades at
teaching
this
to
point.
some, yeah, over 25 years.
But you also went to a girls' school, right? In high school, isn't that all
I
girls or
did go,
no?
well, and that's ironic, is I did go to an all girls Catholic high school. I got a fabulous education. I did not love it. It was a means to an end. Um, I teach now at an all boys Catholic high school, and it's super interesting. I firmly believe that all boys make sense. I do not firmly believe all girls make sense.
Huh.
Like if I had girls, I don't know if I'd let them go to that type of school.
Your personality, though, like you're so good at fitting in with the guys, you personally.
I didn't know I was until it happened.
When was that?
Well, now this is my second year there,
No, I mean like in social situations.
but I didn't even realize that about myself.
Oh,
Oh,
funny.
funny.
I feel like the
Yeah.
rest of us would have been like, oh, yeah, go get a soccer
No,
game going. And
no, I was terrified to teach all boys. Like it was the biggest leap of faith, changing your career at 48 years old and knowing that you have to pay the bills and hoping this worked.
mm.
No, I was terrified.
What talk to me about the faculty though? So you went from a situation where it was mostly women,
Yeah.
and now are they mostly male? Your colleagues, are they mostly male, or is it a mix?
It's a definite mix. But you know, it's super cool because the female in the building are celebrated. He's 65 years old. He's been at that institution for years. He's a baseball coach. And he has no problems more than once. I work with these strong, beautiful women who are tough, and he celebrates us. So we're not an invasion in the male culture. We are celebrated as humans, not necessarily even as females, just as humans.
And
And they love having us there.
I think we as women have a hard time being celebrated also. Like I go right to
Mm-hmm.
chivalry, right? Like the idea of someone
Yeah.
holding the door for me, I'm like, hell yeah. I menstruate every month or I have a baby in my bed. Like, yes, you can hold the door for me. I love that. But there's a lot of women that would say like I can remove that barrier myself. And that's actually the way that people talk about it as being offensive to some women. So I think it's even confusing how we want to be celebrated, not even just
Yes.
celebrate each other, but how do we want that 65-year-old man to celebrate us? I don't know.
That's a good point. The means of celebration or the way that feels for women is very different person to person.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think that Women's Lib has done a beautiful thing, but I also think it's done a lot of harm. That in some
How
sense,
so?
um, so Women's Lib, it had to happen. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm thrilled it happened. And, you know, the fact that I could play soccer since I was 6 years old and play varsity soccer is because of Women's Lib, and which is a shame to even have to say. But sometimes I think we've lost our femininity in the process of it all. And that to be female is less than, when it's not.
Yeah, like
To
we
be
should
female is
celebrate.
beautiful. You know, to be female and have that compassion, to have the tears, to have the hugging, and especially working with all men, they don't notice those things, right? And once again, I'm working on stereotypes. I celebrate both sides, and we all bring such beautiful gifts to the table that I want to celebrate men and women and everybody in between. I don't care, but just celebrate people in general, but let them be their person.
So interesting. Another thing we don't celebrate right now, treating others differently. It's supposed to be an equal playing field. It's supposed to be, there's this weird tension right now in society where it's supposed to be, oh yeah, everyone has the same opportunities because equal somehow means the same
Right.
today versus, hey, if we actually view the individual humanity and respond as such, it's much more dignifying for
Oh yeah,
everyone involved when it's done correctly.
and you get
I don't
better
think
results.
Yeah, but I don't think we talk about that enough. It's kind of swallowed up in the same. Everything has to be same.
Into some senses, I'm in my bubble. Um, those boys know I love them, and I will do whatever I need to do to help them be successful, whether it be academic or as people. And so, as a teacher, you build a reputation, and you're very careful with that said reputation. So, because of that, most of them, I always try to be polite and word things correctly, but most of them, if I word something a little bit incorrectly, they'll assume the best out of me
Yeah.
because I've already built that reputation and rapport in the building.
That's such a good perspective that I would love to assimilate more into my own life. I'd like to lean on that a little more. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I screwed up here, but I need to rely on the fact that ultimately this relationship or this situation is much bigger than the 30 seconds where I blew my mouth and lost my filter. Like
Yeah.
I giving others the benefit of the doubt to say, you know what, they actually probably do see you and your intention.
Well, and I actually do that in everyday life, whether it be at work or at school, or strangers. I try very, very hard to either one, assume the best out of them and that it's not a personal attack on me. And if I step back and say, no, that kind of was a personal attack on me, and then not take it personally, be like, wow, what did that person go through, or what are they going through now that made them feel necessary to do that? Not necessarily to me. You don't want the word me in there anymore. And I try to live life like that all the time. I just assume the best. And my husband calls, oh, your blue eyes, your innocent little blue eyes. I'm like, I'm not dumb. I'm not naive. And he's of course given me my instructions. I fly out for Denver for this week for a conference. And he's like, be careful. I'm like, I'm careful, but I'm still going to assume the best out of people.
So, what makes you feel valued as a woman?
It's the little things in life. It's something like and you don't need to edit this out, my 13-year-old boy, when he's trying to express himself and he goes, I'm a strong, independent woman. And oh yeah.
I can see it.
Oh yeah. And he's not trying to be sassy. He's actually saying, look at my mom. My mom's a rock star. And like, she works her butt off. So just, the acknowledgement from that and being appreciated by my children is, well, obviously, and my husband, he's a rock star, but just that appreciation. It could be something as simple as walking through the hallways and students I don't even teach. Hey, Mrs. Kuhl, how are you doing today? That's it. Just being acknowledged as a person.
A lot of the way you converse with the world in your external circumstances, I think we could attribute more masculine values to that. In terms of your straightforwardness.
Are you talking about me personally?
You personally, your
Okay.
straightforwardness, your ability to communicate at face value, let things go. Those, I think most people would agree, we associate those communication traits with males more often. So I'm wondering where you feel feminine, like how you feel feminine, how you celebrate actual femininity in your life.
Well, don't
as
forget,
a strong woman.
I don't see myself the way you guys see myself. I don't necessarily see myself as this strong and male characteristics person at all. Like, I know that probably is who I am, but I don't put two thoughts to it. That's just who I am.
I need to be clear. I don't think that you are a masculine woman. Let me be
I know
clear.
you. Oh, I know you. No, I know. But like, really, I don't put two thoughts. I don't care. It is who I am. There comes a stage in your life, especially after my job, where I was crucified for being who I was, where they did want to change me. I needed to be quieter. I needed to be gentler. There's all these things I was supposed to do to change me, who I was, to the point where I thought like there was something wrong with me. And then I go to
horrible.
Yes. And one of my parents actually called it PSTD for me because I was loud at my new school one day and I'm like, oh, no one cares. It was very hard for me, realizing there's nothing wrong with me. And so between that and just being, I'm going to be 50 this summer. I don't have time to think about what other people think about me because frankly, I don't care. I care what I think about myself in the sense that, am I being a kind person? Am I constantly looking at myself saying, hey, that wasn't quite so groovy what you just did. What are you going to do to change that? Or are you contributing to society? Are you being the best career mom? Are you being the best mom? That's my job to self-reflect, not someone else's job.
When did that?
And I hear that. Oh, go ahead.
Just when do you feel like you started to feel that mindset, or has that been how you've thought about it your whole life?
I would say you definitely get it more in your 40s. And it also was, I was in such a bad spot at my old job by the time I left that it was a shell of myself that we actually had to slowly watch myself come back. And that's tragic. That should never, I should never have allowed that. And it should never happen to anybody. And so, since then, I fought very, very hard as to what is it to be Lisa Kuhl? What is it to be mother, wife, educator, daughter? And what am I going to do about that? And so to go back to your original question about, I don't think necessarily about being male and female. And that is interesting because being in a male dominated world, I know I'm female, obviously, and I know I'm feminine. So like, I'm careful about things like I'm not going to wear a really low cut shirt. Like in that sense, I understand that. I actually think I'm more, and I'm being way PC correct, and I'm not trying to be. I way think of I'm a role model. So like even the boys for yearbook, they said, "What do you want to be remembered as a teacher?" And I want to be remembered as a positive role model. So I'm a role model as a mom. I'm a role model as a teacher. I'm a role model as a person. How I conduct and carry myself in front of these boys, that's what I focus on. And if it's taking care of myself physically, am I exercising? Am I dressing correctly? Am I coming with not your hair perfect and your makeup perfect, but am I presenting myself in a positive manner to these impressionable teenagers?
That also shows that you value yourself. I mean, that's such a
Yes.
huge thing to teach boys right now is that women are strong and we value ourselves and that you should value us. Like when you're being a role
Yeah.
model, you're being a strong woman, which is so important right now, I think more than
Yeah.
ever.
Well, and it's also a lot easier for me. You guys are at stages where your kids are young, where you go to the bathroom and they're standing right next to you as you're trying to pee. Um, I have teenage boys where I can say, Mom needs to go on her walk. And they're like, yeah, Mom needs to be able to take care of herself. So I'm also just in a different stage in my life too, where my teenage boys understand what it means for me to take care of myself.
But that understanding that they have of you started years ago. I watched it
Mm-hmm.
happen. You set those boundaries for them. You told them how it was going to be. And it's one of the coolest things watching them take care of you. Like particularly Hans will kind of he's a bit of a caretaker.
He
And
is. He's
he's
a
a
little old man.
teenage boy. I mean, he clearly cares about your well-being, A, and B, knows what he can do or what you need to do to make that possible. And I think many adults never learn that about themselves. So the fact that that exists in your family, you must have communicated that and set that up pretty early on with them for it to be so fluid.
Don't forget, it was really hard being the first career mom in the family.
We need to talk about
Yep,
that.
I was just gonna say I need to talk.
Can we go back? Yeah, can we go back to we can talk about your pregnancy with Hans too, in your delivery. That was a whole thing. But so you're a fresh mom. Just say you're pregnant. What did you and Uncle Christian talk about in terms of your work life once Hans arrived?
We didn't. Well, we did, but we didn't. So the original plan was I was going to homeschool like everybody else did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
After getting your master's and having this career, you had a full career as an educator before you had Hans.
Because I was 34 when I had Hans. And so, and don't forget, Christian's from the former East Germany. So it is it's a different mindset. So the original plan was that I would homeschool like everybody else. And at the same time, I still worked for the University of Toledo being a student teacher supervisor, meaning when people were student teaching, I'd critique them and help them out. And I was of a big value because once again, I didn't sugarcoat things. So I'm not mean. I love the phrase think. I don't know what they all stand for, but is it necessary? Is it helpful? Is it kind? There's all these things for think. And so when people say I tell it how it is and I'm straightforward, I actually have think in the back of my head. So when I was a supervisor for these young adults, if it's going to help them be a better educator, I would tell them in baby steps. Or one of the hardest things was to say, how did you make it this far? Why are you even teaching? And that was really hard. But I was like, he's not going to last a week. He can barely say hello in front of a group of kids, and he's about to graduate. So I did realize very quickly that I had value there. So I was working part-time. I did the little mistakes. Like I put the TV on in front of Hans when he was super, super little because I didn't know what to do with myself. Like it was really hard to be a stay-at-home mom for me that
So
first
hold
year.
on. Were you still supervising at the university while you were a new mom, or did you do that? Did you stop that when you had
I
Hans?
think Hans was 2-ish or 1-ish. I'm trying to remember. I bet Hans was little, but who would have watched him? Because don't forget, I'm the first career mom. I was not getting help for outside the family. Like, sorry, but I wasn't. So I don't
Right.
remember how old he was.
But when he was a newborn, were you working at all?
Not a newborn. If I was nursing, I did not at all with Hans. Now, Eric, so my kids are 22 months apart. When Eric was 6 months, I would pump and I felt like a machine and I hated it. And I worked part-time with Eric. And then we decided, and Christian and I realized that when Hans was 3, actually, I gave him a tour of the school that I went to for elementary school. And I had no agenda. I just wanted Christian to see where did I go to school. And we left out the school and he goes, that's where our kids are going to school. And I go, what? That's a private school. Do you know how much money that is every year, honey? And we made it work. And we realized he quickly realized how much in this city, a Catholic education is particularly that school is just, it's leaps and bounds above everybody else. It's just a better education. I'm sorry. And it's not fair. And but it is what it is.
Sure.
And you do the best for your kids.
Yeah. I like Ed Choice in Ohio is much better. So that does make me feel better that more kids have that opportunity if that's what they want.
I want to know what it felt like for you to stop working with the baby. Do you remember, or have you?
I know the fact that you don't remember who watched him. I'm like, how? Because right now I'm like, did I make the right choice? Who's what? Like that's all I think about is who's watching my children, and it hasn't been that long since you. So that actually was helpful for me to hear you say you don't remember.
So I don't think I really worked much when Hans was a newborn. I worked more so when I really started gearing up part-time was I think Hans was 4 and Eric had to been 2. I'd have to look at my resume. And a girl who I had grown up with all my life, she watched them. And I think that was a game changer for me because I did try more of the standard strangers watching my kids. And I remember, oh my gosh, I'll never forget. Eric was at one place for a day and I picked him up and there's just crap all over his hair. I'm like, what the, like, I don't know if it was milk, it was just, he's 6 months old and there's just crap. And they couldn't tell me what was all over my kid's hair. And that they never saw my kids again. And so I don't know, it was great. I was able to use Lori and they probably watched too much TV. But I knew they were safe, and it was somebody that I had known all my life, and that was a game changer.
That's huge.
And then I didn't go full time till Eric was in first grade and Hans was in full time. But once again, I've had that blessing somehow of I always work where they go to school.
That's amazing.
So that really makes a huge difference.
Do you remember what it felt like getting back into the workforce? Because I'm pretty sure statistically, and we can fact check this, it's after the second kid where we lose out on women in the workforce. I mean, first one, it's easier to send them to daycare, but after the second one, that's when it's harder for moms to go back.
I never really left though. It was such a short period of time that I wasn't working where I kept my foot in the door with the University of Toledo. And I wasn't expecting to go back to teaching. I think Eric was 6 months when Ursula called me. But it just was it just landed on my plate and we're like, you're never going to find a part-time teaching job. And then, I was working for the part-time for the university and things just always seemed to, I say I live a charmed life to a certain extent that things just kind of land on my plate, but I work very hard for it too.
Mm-hmm.
Even my current job, I have a reputation in this city and I really am careful about that reputation that everybody doesn't need to love me as their teacher. That's impossible for everyone to love me as a teacher. But I want to be a respected teacher where people know I do the best I can at the time. And I'm human. I'm not perfect. And I'm not going to click with all personalities no matter how hard I try. But I do take my reputation very seriously.
And it feels for you that like motherhood, your career, everything's intertwined for you. It feels like your
Yes.
personality, your personhood involves your career,
Mm-hmm.
which is not true for every mom and probably not true for a lot of moms. But I think that's important for Emily and I right now because I've done what, 3 years now of having a career and a baby, but I was the first one to go to work full time, and that was really hard. Like first one
It
of
is.
our family.
It
Like
is
you did part time.
very
Thank
hard.
God you did.
I'm curious for you too to unpack. My perception is that it wasn't a positive reaction. You were not, neither of you were applauded for that choice.
The thing for me is I know that it's everybody wanting the best for me and my kids, not just my kids. And so even though it's hard for me to feel, I'm not that confident in my career as a mom decision anyways because we had a we got pregnant accidentally, and I was like, well shit, guess my decision is made, and it wasn't, but there just wasn't even time to think. So I wasn't confident enough going into it to really even know what I wanted, and I'm still unpacking it, but I do fully believe that everybody just wanted the best for me and my kids. But yeah, it was still tough, and it is still tough, and I just didn't have anybody as an example, like even any friends except for Auntie Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
But
Callie, and it's interesting because especially going from an elementary school to a high school, I had to unpack it all over again
mm,
because it is a very lonely feeling. I don't have any friends who work as many hours as I do. Like, I don't know any, like, other than my coworker female friends, there's no one to talk about it with. And so, as I was starting a high school, there's more hours just because I want to go to the soccer game and support the boys varsity soccer game
yeah.
or go to the hockey games or whatever. But at the same time, my own children were also starting their sports that we're doing 6 times a week.
Wow.
And at the same time, I had a couple physical injuries as I'm starting. I'm trying to exercise and take care of myself and keep a meal prep going and keep food on the table and make sure
Yeah.
we do dinners because we try really hard. We do most dinners together as a family at night. And it was a very lonely feeling for the longest time because I had no one to ask and talk about. How do I do this? How do you balance? And you just kind of work through it. And that's one thing I like to celebrate more than is like life is not always easy, but you just dig in deep. You got lots of grit, and life is this beautiful, wonderful thing when you just keep fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you fight and laugh at the same time? I know it doesn't always happen. I mean, that can't possibly happen to tandem all the time. But
I
I
always
remember talking to you about your adventures or your vacations. And I've heard you say this so many times. Oh, we don't have bad days on vacations.
Am I
Like,
really?
oh
I
yeah. Oh, we
love
don't
that.
have bad days
How?
on
Pray
vacations.
tell.
It's
Like,
it's all a mindset, and it starts with your grandmother Baba. She used to make me crazy. Look at the donut, not the hole. And it's to a certain extent, it's all in how you perceive life. So I can honestly say there is not a day that goes by that I don't look around my physical home and my physical family and go, holy crap, this is mine. That sense of gratitude, I make sure every day, wow, I am so damn lucky. What am I going to do to give to the world? Because holy crap, look what I have. And then on the days that are harder, I acknowledge, yeah, this is a hard day. And you know what? But I'll get through it. I'll talk about it with my kids or my husband or whatever needs to be done. And I'm usually pretty upfront about it. And then I celebrate when things are going really well. I go, wow, this is really great. Let's soak it in because I know it's not going to last like this all the time. Something's going to come up.
and I know Baba talks about her gratitude practice, which has been her whole life as well.
Yeah. I just do it mentally in my head. You know, like when especially on the weekends, is I have my morning coffee and I can look out the window and there's the birds on my feeder and we've got this gorgeous orchid stand full of beautiful flowers in my house right now. And I just sit there and yeah, you're lucky.
How do you feel your life right now compares to what you thought it would be when you were, like, let's say, a teenager, a young girl?
Okay, so when I was a young girl, I was very goal driven. So I've had to like
Checks
tame
out.
myself back. Okay, so like it was like, here, wait till I get to the next goal. Check. Next goal. Check. 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 Like, yeah, I was a little driven. I probably had to make people crazy with that. Um, so my goal was, you go to high school, you get a good college, you get a good job, you get married, and you have kids. And then it stopped. So that means at 36, my life just stops because I'm done. I was married. I had children at that point. Like, I never thought past, well, what's next? And then so I just laughed my head off. I'm like, oh, it doesn't just stop. There's a whole new.
I feel that. I don't think Emily could relate to that at all. And I am like,
What?
yes, yep. That like checklist of like, all right, high school, college, husband, kids. Check. I mean, did you ever think that, Emily? Ever?
No.
I never once thought, oh, in your 40s, oh, keep going.
So funny.
Like there's
That
no
is
goals for me. Like, I mean, there's goals, but there's no like life standing goals ahead of me right now.
well, so what are you
Incredible.
doing? You have all this energy, and I know you're oriented towards achieving. So what do you do for yourself? Are you able to just sit and relax? I mean, I know you're not relaxing on the day to day. We've just discussed what your schedule is like, but what do you think about your 50s now? Or your 60s
South
or your
America, baby.
80s?
I don't, I'm now I embrace like on weekends, Christian and I, we don't go on dates because, we're saving for our next travels. But we'll do things like we go to the grocery store together or we'll go to the park together and and the boys won't come with us. What's so funny, Callie?
Getting hot in here.
At the grocery store, aisle 5. Cleanup needed.
And it's super sad because right now we're coming across a lot of coworkers and people that we know where they're getting divorces after 15, 20, 28 years. And it's just like, that's not what we want in our life. And so I think, in my 50s and right now, we're kind of focusing back on us again, which has really been kind of cool. Not as much as I'd like to, just because we still have teenagers in the house who still need us and our attention. But I think that's my goal, reconnecting and redoing more stuff with my husband and going, oh my gosh, I might retire in 13 years. Like, I know the number I might retire. It's so funny. Like, I'm not that old. And just that type of stuff.
Did
What
you
if,
have that conversation with him? Like, hey, let's reconnect. Or is it kind of just happening naturally?
we both have acknowledged and seen marriages that are going down. And so we don't want that. And so we both have just said, we've got to really, we both appreciate each other. We both appreciate what we have. And I don't like that. They always say you have to work at your marriage. And I don't like that term because it's not work to me. You always have to make time for your marriage, I guess. I don't know.
It's funny. That's one of the things I'm really proud of in our relationship is the amount of work that we've put into it. But
Yeah.
it's always hindsight work. Like if it ever feels like work in the moment, it's never felt that way for me. And if it does, I don't think it will
Then
be
it's
fun.
it's
But
not
if I think
authentic
about
either.
it in the past, I'm like, oh yeah, there was a lot of effort that we've put towards each other very intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So for some reason, the tense makes a difference for me.
And I
in
wouldn't
terms
be
of
the
that
person
word.
I am without him.
Mhm.
I couldn't be this amazing career mom if I didn't have my wingman. I mean, I couldn't do anything without him. I could live without him. There's a difference. Like if something tragic happened to him, I would be able to, and we've talked about that, pick up my feet and I could live and I could have a happy, productive life. So
It's a good
I couldn't.
distinction.
So this might be too far back, but Emily and I are both in the throes of small people motherhood and marriage. And Emily at least like had some years, right, of marriage before that happened. And we
We had
said,
a
"Oh shit."
blast.
So, do you remember, like, was there a moment that you can remember where you're like, "Oh, this is getting easier," or maybe it just wasn't even hard, but when they're so little and you're so sleep deprived, and I mean, you're just existing together and trying to be the best parents you can and the best spouse, but you're so damn tired. Like, do you remember that
Yeah.
ending? I know it ends, but do you remember? Could you tell me? Could you give me a date
We
and a
don't.
checklist?
Yeah, where's your checklist for that?
We don't say it necessarily ends, but I remember we'd look at each other at 4 and 6 and be like, "Oh, they're both potty trained,"
Yeah.
or like, "Oh, they don't." They like. I'm trying to think of some of the miles. Like we've actually talked about like, "Oh, we don't have to do like being able to leave them both home alone so we could go do something."
Yes.
Oh, we can go on a walk and they're totally fine by themselves. Those types of milestones have just been like, oh, Hans can, well, because Eric refuses to cook, heaven forbid. Oh, Hans can make his brother dinner while we go out on a date and have dinner.
Oh.
And they can just go eat frozen pizza for the night. Like,
I don't
wow.
like this conversation anymore. That's too far in the future. Let's erase that. And I
Oh, okay, here's one. Here's one. You don't have to carry the diaper bag with you.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Yes. I had that for such a small time and it was beautiful.
You don't have a permanent attachment of a bag next to you.
Oh, thank God.
Although Emily's is so stylish. Have you seen it?
It's so cute.
You guys are like way more stylish moms than I was.
You were always a hip auntie.
Yeah.
You
The
always
little-
Oh
did
no,
it.
The little
I've
cartilage
lost that
lizard.
hipness. I think I have him somewhere.
Oh yeah, the little man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my
Okay.
little climbing man.
I want to pivot us back to your personhood outside of motherhood. I go back to work in a few weeks, which I'm have a lot of feels
Not
about.
handling well.
Okay. I have not called you during a meltdown nor told you about one, so why would you say that?
Yeah, I know. That's the concerning part, I think.
When I was pregnant, I was so grateful I had work to go back to because I knew it would be hard to leave my baby, and I was grateful that I was going to have to. Something was going to force my hand. And I do still think my personality, the way that I am, I like work. I've had a lot of jobs I really, truly enjoy. And I think there's so much value for me personally, not all women, but me personally, in having relationships and connections and value outside of my spouse and my child. So I do want that to be a piece of my life. I'm totally horrified that I'm going back to work though. And I think it would be easier for me if it felt like it was my vocation or if it was something that really resonated with my unique skill set, that I was contributing more to the world. If I wasn't going to be with my son, I was making the world a better place. I don't feel that with this job, and it's fine for the moment. But my perception of you is that your vocation is a teacher. Like your vocation as a human being is an educator, and you're damn good at it. So do you remember finding that? Do you remember a moment where that clicked for you, or have you built that identity?
Are you talking about like as a mom, as a vocation,
No,
as a teacher,
as a
or just
vocation, like as you, Lisa Kuhl,
being an educator?
being an educator, yes.
So it's always been stages for me. So I started hanging out with kids when I was 15, and I would do leadership weekends for middle school kids at YMCA store camps in Michigan. And that was my first kind of feel. And then I would work summer camps there. And so I always worked with kids. I was very, very blessed. And my father and my mom paid for my undergrad education. They wouldn't let me go into education.
Really?
No, they wouldn't pay for it.
Why?
Because it was stupid classes and they didn't think it was worth the money.
As a major.
As a major. I'm very grateful to this day that they would not allow me to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've taken those and I paid it myself, and it was horrible to pay for that.
Yes. So, and that goes to a whole different thing as to why society feels the way they do about teachers. Well, I can tell them why they feel about it because I went into biology and I loved it. I majored in biology and I think that was the first time I realized I was smart because I never, I
Really?
never, I always identified myself as a jock all the way through high school. I had been playing soccer competitively from when I was 6 till all the way through high school. So I was a soccer jock. I was not smart.
So, tangent. Is it possible to not identify as intelligent and be part of Bob and Grandpa's family?
Right. That's hard.
Um, it was never, but don't forget when I was a kid, your father and your other auntie weren't in the house.
Oh, right. There's a big age gap.
There's a huge spread of the
Okay.
kids. So when I was living, it was just Megan, myself, and Sean. When I was kind of my growing up years.
Okay.
And Megan was very, very academically smart, but she worked much harder at it than I did. And I knew she did. And she embraced and loved the fact that I was a soccer jock. So when I got to college and I'm taking these hard science classes and I'm being successful at them, I'm like, oh, and other kids could barely pass other classes. That was the first time I realized I was smart. And then I just loved it. So from there, I went to the Shed Aquarium and loved it. But all of a sudden, I'd have these kids and I'd only see them for a day. And then they'd leave my life again. And I realized I missed that interaction and that day-to-day bonding with them. And so that's where I paid to get my master's in education. And I took, it was embarrassing. It was my master's degree. I would work all day long and then I would write my papers, then ride my bike to class and be in class for 3 hours and start all over again. And I stopped buying textbooks. I stopped proofreading my papers and I got straight A's. And so I was very grateful they did not pay for my education degree. So when you say that teaching became my vocation, it kind of happened in baby steps. I always say, people say, oh, you became a teacher to get your summers off. And I can honestly, with my core, say, I became a teacher because I love it. It never crossed my mind, oh, this is a career where I can be a good mom. It never crossed my mind, oh, this is a career where I get my summers off. It really, I hadn't put that much thought. It was just, this is what I want to do. I've been very, very blessed that most of my years teaching, I absolutely love it. And I can still say I love it.
After 2020, after that whole debacle of teaching virtually, I mean, that weeded out so many teachers. We're still in a crisis in terms of needing good teachers. And you had some moments during those years, but fully have rebuilt yourself or in that process. So yeah, that to me, it's vocation is the only word I could put to it. So it sounds like you had a few moments where it clicked, the shed really being the big one. So then that gave you your next check mark to go for. But then have you ever questioned it, or do you just keep building these stepping stones based on curiosity and love for it?
So it's a little bit of both. So after 2020 and all that debacle, that's when my job got bad. So maybe 2020 is maybe that's why that happened. And I actually did think about leaving teaching because I knew I couldn't stay there anymore. But it's not by happenstance that the boys and I, all three of us outgrew the school at the same time, that we all three went to the same high school. So I'm not nearly as faith-filled as the rest of the family, but God or the spirits or whatever you call them know that I'm very good with kids, whether it be a little, not little kids as much, but whether it be teenagers, let's say teenagers. Teenagers are man-childs because I teach 19-year-olds. They know I love them for who they are, and I'm willing to figure out who they are as people for wherever they are. And so it's not by accident that all three of us are at the same school again. It's not by accident that my boys know what it's like to be a staff kid, and the three of us have very open conversations about what does it mean to be a staff kid, and how do my actions reflect on them, and vice versa, and how do we work together to make this work. We have very open, frank conversations about that. And then my husband and I, when I went full-time, when Eric was in first grade, we made conscious decisions about where I would work. So I used to work for a Delightful district. It's a public school district here. I loved every moment of it. Fabulous staff, fabulous administration. I have nothing against it at all. And when I was when I was going to go back full time, I actually thought about going back there. It's a different type of teaching that I realized that I was not capable of. You know, there's more state testing. There's more red tape that these teachers have to deal with. Your hands are tied a little. It feels like your hands are tied a little bit more when you come across some of these tragedies that these kids are coming across. So we made a conscious decision to keep me in the Catholic school system where I don't make as much money, but for my personality, I can be a better mom. And at my current school, I do feel like the diversity is better than at my public school, like social, economic, race, the whole thing. They're like, oh, you're at a Catholic school, you don't have any gay boys. I'm like, yeah, actually, I do. I have gay staff members too. So
That's so nice.
it's a really diverse school where I'm able to do what I need to do. And I don't have to deal with some of this stuff that is keeping people from teaching.
Something that's really surfacing on my mind through this whole conversation is, I think, for moms specifically, we're talking about career moms, there's this concept of kind of an external sphere and an internal or private sphere. You know, there's like the family circle and how you show up as a mom, as a wife, as a woman there, and then how you show up professionally to your colleagues in that external way. I mean, you get different challenges in both arenas, you get different validations, you need different skill sets in a lot of ways. And I'm sure this is true for men too. I have more firsthand stories from women. They seem so fluid for you. And that's striking me as really unusual that you can show up in a kind of a holistic way. It's a goal I realize I'm having for my life is how do I recognize and use all my gifts in the same way? So I don't need to switch on and off when I'm being a professional or you know what I'm saying? But you're mentioning choosing your district and the kind of school you're at based on the kind of authentic person you want to be. So that to me speaks of you understanding what you need holistically in both spheres and pursuing that.
Yes, there has, like, you can't do it all. Like if my husband, he's even had jobs where he could make more money and he could travel more, but it's a conscious decision that he won't take those jobs because he knows if he travels more, then I can't do what I do. So he's actually given up some of those opportunities where we both have great careers. We both do really, really well, but neither one of us have that type of job that takes it all or nothing. That was fast.
That was a teacher mom pee.
Yeah, I don't know. It just booted me. I don't know why.
Oh yeah, I pee all the time. Welcome to being in your 50s. They don't tell you that part either.
Oh. Wait, you pee more?
Oh my God, I pee all the time. And you have to wear a mini all the time because then you drip too.
No. Have you seen a pelvic floor therapist?
Oh yeah, I've done it all. You don't even want to know the whole rigor. And then if you stand up or like go up a little bit, more people come out. So you got to make sure you get fully empty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I hear about that more like
it's
after
brutal.
birth where women are like, oh, this is the cool thing about being pregnant.
Oh, no.
It happens later in life. Cool. Oh, so you're not out of the woods if you're cool. I love that. Yay.
Oh, no. So like when I go to get this cool South America, I'm like, I'm going to be hot and sweaty. Do I bring mini pads? Do I do those period underwear and I clean them every day? Or do oh yeah.
Yay.
Oh, sad.
So sad.
Sorry to burst your bubbles, ladies.
Well, since something happened on my end, we had a tech issue. Sorry, everyone. Maybe let's pivot a little bit. When I say the word matriarch,
that makes me cringe. I hate
okay, so thoughts, words. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's go.
Matriarch makes me feel like that female who needs to control the whole family.
So we've talked about this word
I think
a lot.
Pellegrino needs to sponsor you guys.
I would love a sponsorship. Yum.
Auntie Katie was also drinking Pellegrino.
She was, yeah, on her interview.
So Pellegrino and Guinness.
So
you hate
matriarch.
Why
is that?
The word.
Let's unpack that a little more. Why is it control based for you?
I don't know. Maybe it's societal. Maybe it's generational. But I'm all about co-working together, male or female, that no one's right or wrong all the time. And, I'm so happy that my husband handles different situations better than I do with our children and raising our family. And sometimes I'm doing a better job. And my kids know that. And, it's just life is always evolving and your roles are always evolving. And even my relationships with my parents and my sisters and my nieces, who would ever have thought, it's hilarious to me. You're old enough for me to have these conversations with.
You know
Old enough
why?
to be having sex above you.
You know why it's so funny for you to contemplate is because when you were younger, your checklist stopped at 36. So no wonder you can't imagine these things.
Truth.
You know how hard that was to come to the realization? I'm like, where's my
No,
checklist? Because
it's so common.
first of all, I had to realize it was happening. I didn't even know it was. I'm like, well, I've done everything I was supposed to do. Now what?
But I think,
Well, even like my career, there's nothing I need to add to my checklist for my career. My resume's done. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to get my PhD. We've already decided I'm not going to. So being okay with the status quo was like, oh.
I think that's why we have problems in middle age, and we as a society. But also, I think as and I'm noticing with my friends in their mid 30s, similar thing. They're like, what else do I want in my life? Like, would be cool to have a yacht, I think, but like, don't need it, Like, I don't know.
Would be cool.
Right. And it's like, oh, would be cool to be like a world traveler and work remotely. But the thing is that in 2024, if you really want that badly enough, you can go after it. So probably you don't really want it that bad. I mean, it's just, your checklist, I think it's a normal thing. I think most people experience that.
But see, now I'm just full of gratitude.
Yeah, you're like not having a crisis. You're like, all right, guess I'll pick up a hobby. You're like, okay, this sounds
good. Can we talk about money? Because you and Uncle Christian, my perception again is that you guys are locked in on how you handle money, how you talk about money. You have such specific goals. You're really good at saying, this is what we're prioritizing for our year. This is what we're spending on. And then everything else is like, nope. So when you're saying nope to other things, so you can say yes to the big things.
Just like that.
How do you
It actually really is. She's pretty accurate. I don't know. And your Auntie Megan would accuse me of thinking about, she would say I think about money too much. And for people
do you think so?
I don't know. I think of lifestyle more than I would say. I don't like to think of it as money, more as what do I want to provide for my children? What don't I want to provide for my children? So I don't want to provide an Apple Watch for my child. I don't want to have them in the newest clothes, or it astounds me what people will spend money on. Like, I don't even see us doing a graduation party or senior pictures. Like, that's the hundreds of dollars. Like, I don't need my children. We don't need that. So it's more of a conscious decision of, I want to be able to have it where if my children, like, they're going to go for a week early to go see our Austrian exchange student. Okay, so I can afford to send them to go see their exchange student for a week, who they think of as their bonus brother. Or, I get to be able to go to South Carolina and relax for a week during spring break. Okay, so taking care of myself, that's what I want to spend my money on. How do I create an atmosphere at my house where people feel welcome in my home, where I can feed them whenever I want to, and I don't have to worry about the budget is, do I have enough money to feed them beer and meat and this and that? So I think that's more of what it is it's what do I want to provide my children and my family than necessarily money.
That makes complete sense to me, because money is actually fake. It's just like a construct that we've all agreed to. So it's really just currency for stability in my mind and lifestyle.
Well, and it's even just, something as simple as, I want to be able to go visit my kids wherever they live in the world. And I don't want to have to stress out about money, because if I'm not stressing about money, then I'm learning how to be my best self and present my best self to the world.
So do you feel like when you were teaching with young kids, when you had a career with young kids, did you think about that fully just as this is my vocation and that's how it fills me up? Or was there also a piece of it that was breadwinning a bit? Not that you're the sole breadwinner, but just like that was making you money, that was providing for that dream.
It never did. When I worked with third graders, I knew I wouldn't last. So like I knew I would like I had a short time frame teaching those younger grades. I knew that part. The only time I felt pressure about being a breadwinner was when I switched jobs at 48. And that terrified me because I knew I couldn't screw up. I knew at that point the family relied on my income and my happiness. But the whole family was happier once I did. That's the only time I felt more like a breadwinner.
I'm just curious because I'm also making those decisions. And as you know, most of our family has chosen being home over stability. And I do love teaching, but I'm not in my perfect school. And it's not the perfect balance for me. But I do want more stability and I like working and I like time away from the kids as hard as it is. So I'm just curious on your take on that, which we've talked about, but it's always hard. It's always evolving.
Yeah.
But you have that stability and that's so beautiful because it does allow you that peace to just figure yourself out.
Well, and when the kids were little, we didn't have the stability. I
Mm.
mean, Uncle Christian, I mean, he has no college education. So it's not like he was making the big bucks. At my other school, I made shameful little amount of money for what I did. So things were very hard. And there was a lot of things we couldn't do. But then there was a lot of things we could do. We could get in a car and take the kids out in a tent and take them on a. So that actually was a priority we established when we had no money. Was we would take a family vacation, not just 2-week vacation, 2 weeks straight. And that was a huge priority, that it was an uninterrupted vacation for 2 weeks.
Mm.
Just the four of us.
Dad did that too.
And we've
The 2 weeks. It's like
Yeah.
the magic
Did he?
number. Yeah, every summer.
That's funny. Yeah.
And we have broken that rule in the sense of allowing other people to join us. And I'm not thrilled about that. Seriously, I'm not. But with my mother-in-law living across the pond and his best friends living across the pond, it has made it harder for us to just be us. So maybe that's why we always just make sure we have dinner together as much as we can at night.
I want to know. Okay, so you've got, boys are going to Austria for a week ahead of time. I need me time in South Carolina, wherever you're going. Cool trips. You got these things on the calendar, planning for them. What do you do when you just want to buy something small and it doesn't fit into the budget? What's your headspace? Asking for a friend.
I don't care.
What? There's got to be something. You're like, oh, it would be so nice to spontaneously spend money on this, but I'm just not going to because we have these other priorities.
Well, I mean, it's not like I don't spend money at all, but
I'm just like I'm a spender.
Like my clothes budget's gone. I don't have any new clothes right now. My clothes budget's gone. But I have to buy some clothes for Guyana, so that'll be fun.
Wait, so there's an example. What are you doing there if your clothes budget's gone?
We just we make sure we're never that skinny. Like we make sure we never are that, or we reshift things.
This isn't working. I'm a spender and I'm like, yeah, I want to spend money and I have it and the X, Y, and Z is crossed off, so I'm going to do it. And you're just like, well, money doesn't exist. It's fine. I don't really want the thing because I'm going to Europe. And I'm like, how do you get into that zen space?
Yeah, Emily, this isn't going to help you because you just have different minds. You love pretty things. You love fashion. You love trendy fashion. You like it to be quality fast fashion.
And
so
now I'm getting roasted. I'm just looking for some life
there's just only
here.
so much we can do for you. That's all I
but
have
you know
to
what?
say right
but
now.
Emily, if how Kaylee's describing you is who you authentically are, own it. So,
She does.
I don't feel bad about it at all. I'm just like, I was asking for help,
no.
and now you're roasting me.
No, and like, okay, so like, let's say you're not supposed to be spending so much money. Say I can only have 10 long sleeve shirts, and when I want to buy a new one, I have to go put the other one on eBay.
It doesn't compute. Like, you can't just have like a category for long sleeve shirts. What do you mean, like 10 long sleeve shirts? Like, what kind of long sleeve shirts? Like,
you said 10. Like, Emily was like, did I hear that right?
I'm like, well, okay, are we including sweaters in there? What about button downs? And like, what if I...
Okay, so that's part of the reason I'm really excited to go to this village of under 300 because they're going to shame me to the nth degrees.
Oh my gosh. Mom and Dad, when they got back from Ethiopia and they were telling me about their visit, I was first just impressed by the joy and how incredible and how rich my life was just hearing about it. And then I was like, oh God, I'm so uncomfortable with everything I have right now. like for weeks afterwards.
All right, I'm roasting you, but now I'm going to pivot us. Auntie Lisa, when
Okay.
have other women not roasted? Maybe that's part of it. When have other women showed up for you?
All of the family. Like, so that is something I always keep in the back of my head is I grew up, we all, including you, sorry, we all grew up in somewhat of a golden atmosphere in the sense that if anything were to happen to any one of us around the world, somebody would be there to physically and mentally pick you back up. And there's a lot of people that don't even have a slight semblance. And I think that allows us to do what we do, as much as we all drive each other crazy sometimes. And it's not a perfect family at all. I do think that that is part of it, is that we know someone will always be there. You know, part of the reason I got strength from changing a job at 48 was one of my very dear friends, Leah. She's very different than I am. And she's one of my biggest cheerleaders. She's one of my biggest support systems. And I couldn't have life without Leah. Is she decided to take her, she's a social worker, therapist. I don't know exactly her title. I really should. She does a beautiful job of talking to teens and helping teens go through whatever teens are going through. And she decided to leave the group she was working with and go solo. And that was very brave. And that was, so that kind of helped me decide to change jobs too, as I saw Leah being brave at an older age, saying, I need to do this for me. And it allowed me to be more brave to say, you know what, I need a change for my family and for me. So I would say that would be one. Our text messages when I was asking you guys about the menstrual cup. Oh my God, that was, I mean, it's great that I could have and go to you like, okay, I'm going to ask my younger, hipper nieces these new strategies and how does it work for them? Or how doesn't it work? And that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I learned some things. That was great.
You know, that just having those open conversations.
How do you feel you show up for other women? Like, is there a specific Auntie Lisa brand? And maybe we would be better at telling you, but what do you think your brand is showing up for other women?
I try to show up for other women by being supportive of whatever they need to do at that moment. And to
Just gonna
say,
say
you know
that.
what? If that's what you need, then obey your instincts because I'm not in your shoes. I'm not in your lifestyle. I don't know what's going on with you. And it's sometimes, frankly, it's none of my business. My business is to listen to you and say, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. That's what I try to do. I don't know if I always come across that way. I try.
I would have said that.
I also, you've got a good circle of friends from where I sit and always have.
I don't have a lot of them. I don't have time for, and it sounds terrible. I don't have a lot of them, but I don't have
I'm
time.
the same. I'm very quality over quantity. But that was going to be my next question is how do you maintain when you have so many things happening in your life all the time? Because you're just very busy. How do you maintain friendships?
Some of it's intentional. So, like Leah, again, she's so much better about saying, hey, we haven't seen each other in a couple of months. When are we getting each other? Like, I tell Leah, I said, Leah, I so appreciate that you never let a couple months to go. And when you get to our age too, you start being with women where it doesn't define you if we haven't talked to each other in a couple of months or if we haven't seen each other, that we're all living our own lives. But if I were to reach out to any of them and say, hey, this is what I need, they would do it for me. So the neighbors who live across the street from me, I taught their daughters. I haven't talked or seen to them in months. Not because of it's just life. Yet when my arm broke, who delivered a meal to me to make sure that I could help feed my family because I had a janky arm for 2 months. I think it's that quantity time. It's that quality thing again, where when you're younger, you feel like you're supposed to be talking to your friends every day and checking in on them every weekend and doing this. And I think you get to the point where my friends know if you need me, I will drop everything. I will walk out those doors of school in the middle of school and say, I'm sorry, I need to go.
Did you think that was true when you were younger, that you needed to be talking to your friends a lot, seeing them all the time? Asking because we're in a different technological age, so there are different means of being too connected, in my opinion, all the time. So
Oh,
you felt
yes.
that way also? That you needed to be or in communication frequently?
I had to figure out how to be a friend. So your father consciously moved away from the family. So one of the beautiful things about being a part of our family is family comes first, family's always there for you. It didn't leave much room for friends. So I didn't know how to be a good friend to somebody and to keep a relationship going and how to work at when things weren't correct. When do you stop being that friend and when do you work to be that friend? And so actually that was a skill I had to learn as an adult, how to be a good friend. So I don't know if I would have, if it's a fair question for me as far as that connectivity, because that was one of those like, duh, how do you not know how to be like,
No, I had the same.
that's one of those.
When was
I
that?
did too. I was just gonna say we can't speak to that
Right.
either. College for me, I was like, what? Wait, we can like not be sunshine and rainbows, but we work through it. Is it worth it? I have sisters, but it is worth it. It's so worth it. And I'm so glad
Yeah.
that my friend, I have one specific friend that really taught me that because I probably would have given up because I have sisters, but I'm so grateful that we didn't.
I didn't realize you guys had to go through that same
I had
thing.
no
Yeah,
boundaries.
completely.
Yeah, mine was the opposite. I have no boundaries and I'm not conflict averse at all. So I have no problem getting in deep with somebody, immediately getting intense, being like, okay, here's where I am, here's where you are. This is interesting. Let's talk about the friction. I had a lot of very unhealthy relationships because I didn't loyalty was so big for me. I didn't know that sometimes it was really good to walk away or say, actually, when you walk into my life that way, I also become depressed. So like
Yeah.
oh, hey, how can we show up in a way that works for both of us and actually makes us better people instead of dragging each other down? I didn't learn that until my 20s when I moved to Seattle and was able to basically only form healthy relationships, trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
So it was after college for me, but I had issues.
I don't have any friends from college.
Mm.
I was too busy drinking.
Hey, sometimes that makes friends, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know.
Also, did we ever acknowledge that it's St. Patty's Day when we're recording
Oh,
this?
it is St. Patty's Day.
Hence why I've got
I
the
love
green
it.
on.
Right, mine is green. It's Irish, even you just can't see.
I get
But everyone's like, probably thinking, oh, why are they drinking Guinness today?
That's
why.
true.
Okay.
Thank you for that little shout out.
Were there any things about pregnancy? Were there things that you would love?
Wait, I don't want to know what she would love to talk about. I want to know what things were never talked about that shocked you.
So I got pregnant, I was 32, 34, I can't remember, with my first one. And so I was just very happy and blessed to finally have a family of my own. Because it was a long process for me. And that checklist wasn't happening. I couldn't make that checklist happen. Um, I think that it's an unspoken thing. Like when you leave the hospital, you leave with a bottle that you're shooting water up your ass to clean off that. Like, they didn't tell you how sore you were going to be, or I was totally unprepared for the adjustment of, Hans was born in June. I'd been teaching and working day in and day out since I was 18. And all of a sudden I'm supposed to just stop and be attached to this one human. And I'm not a bad person, that it was really hard to be attached to this one person.
I think Emily loved
What?
it, right? Like you kind of loved that phase of being like attached and snuggles and blah blah blah.
I didn't think I would like it, yeah, because I don't love babies, but
and you loved
totally
it, and
loved
I'm
it.
with you, Auntie Lisa. Oh, it was so hard. Okay.
Well, and then on top of it, I had a freak accident where I was physically a hot mess when I got home, where I couldn't take care of I physically had to have someone help me with my kid. So it was a lot of layers, I've always identified as a physical person. I've always identified that my body's going to work for me. And so being physical, for the people who don't know, basically we think, because it's 1 in a million chance that this would happen, that all my bones in my pelvis area were dislocated. And I went home in a walker at the age of 34 with my first.
And you couldn't walk.
And it
You
was the
couldn't
first
walk for a good chunk of time after that, too, right? Like it wasn't.
We couldn't trust me to nurse Hans and walk with Hans ever, because it took years of physical therapy, and so it was kind of multi-layered for me, that all of a sudden my body failed me. So here I am, I have to mentally take care of this kid. I'm supposed to be super all sunshine and rainbows that I've got this baby. My body fails me. And it was a very humbling experience to have to physically work yourself through that and to have more compassion for people who are overweight and who have an injury and trying to work through it. But now like I'm bone on bone on my kneecaps. I'm going to have a knee replacement one of these days. I'm on cortisone shots already. And I go, you know what? You can do it. You got the grit. You can keep being physical. You can keep moving. You can keep. So maybe I don't have to run. I can't run anymore. I couldn't run after Hans's injury either. Like I had to give that up. And that's okay. It doesn't. So trying to redefine yourself as things change, it was hard, but at the same time, I'm very grateful for them.
Because you're not type A, I don't think. I mean, like, type A to me, behavior would be, okay, I have X, Y, and Z that I'm doing every day, and it will move me closer to my goal.
Can I just hug you and squeeze you right now? Because do you know how many people tell me I'm type A? And I'm like, I'm not.
Well, okay. So, no, it's with the working assumption that you're not type A, how do you make sure that you get to the next checklist? So, say you're injured and you have to redefine who you think you are because your body betrayed you in some way, and you have to rebuild, and you can do X, Y, and Z to rebuild. How do you keep a consistent forward momentum?
Grit.
Okay. What
Pure cussedness.
But what does that look like? Does the grit cause you to be consistent in the way you show up, or what does the grit cause you to do to move forward?
And never give up. Like I have that. I don't have any checklists anymore. I don't have any lofty. For me right now, it's living in the moment and celebrating everything that I have and being so grateful for that. And it's never giving up. I was walking to school last semester where my knees were locking up left and right. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit there and cry like a baby, or are you going to put your big girl panties on and do something about it? Putting your big girl panties on is a constant struggle for me. Like, not a struggle, but like, I will always do that because I have to show up. Last week I came home from work with a headache from my period. I was flat out on the bed for all night long. I'm ready to throw up. It's just, and then you wake up the next morning, you feel like a weak rag doll. You take the Advil on and you pick yourself up and you go to work. You show up.
What do you do when you can't find the grit?
I don't know what that looks like.
I was just going to say.
What?
No,
So,
I agree. I feel like the longer we talk, the more I'm like, wow, I didn't realize how similar I am to you. And I was thinking the same thing. You never don't have the grit. Like there just isn't a thing to like.
What if
No.
it's just like a little further away from you and you have to reach for it a little bit? What does the reaching look like?
It's harder.
Sometimes it's so, and sometimes, Emily, it's even as simple as giving yourself permission to just stop for a little bit too. That is also grit. So like today, I gave myself permission. I wasn't going to do I think I did 19,000 steps yesterday. Shit, I'm barely at anything today. I'm at 5,900. That's really low. Where's my over 10,000 for the day? But I had given myself permission today to take a day off. And I think that loving and accepting yourself for where you are at that day, and then knowing that I've got the grit that tomorrow I'm going to be right back at it again.
Are there periods in your life you can think back to where you had to actually make the choice to give yourself that space consistently, where it was difficult?
That's taking care of yourself.
But it's hard when it's not one day out of a month, one day out of a week, where you're like, you know what? Something's going on. Give yourself some grace. What happens if you need to be giving yourself little doses of grace consistently for many days in a row?
My last year at my old job, that was really hard to keep showing up every day. I had to learn tricks of the trade. Believe it or not, I am a music person. So before I would go to work every day as I was getting breakfast and lunches going, I would put positive music on for like 10 or 15 minutes before I'd go into work every single day. And I'd pump myself up to go into work. That's what I did then. With this South Guyana trip, like South America Guyana trip, I was terrified to go for a while. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be with all these young 20-year-olds. I'm not going to be able to keep up. And I'm like, no, stop. And then sure enough, the song Unstoppable came on. I'm like, yeah, I am unstoppable. I got this.
So Emily, what like you have? I mean, you get things done. If you want to get something done, you'll get it done. I think yours is just a different brand. What's your version of grit?
That's a great question, Callie.
My version of grit is doing the hard thing over and over again to get where you need to go.
Even when you don't want to.
I think you're maybe more big picture. Maybe just the day to day. Like you don't love to work out. Auntie Lisa and I both work out a lot. I think like that's just a little example of personality traits that I think maybe grit just shows up differently.
I'm better at the big hard thing. I'm better at there's a mountain and it's staring me down, and I will beat that mountain to a pulp. I will dominate that mountain. If it's the foothills leading up to the mountain, I'm like, God, I got to do this other foot. Why? This is boring.
This is not
isn't
worth
that beautiful?
My time.
We need different personalities like this. If we didn't have different personalities, the world would be so boring.
It's true, but I think my brand of grit for me to be able to handle the foothills, which is what inevitably leads you to the mountain, I need to like psych myself up. I need to play mind games with myself, which is why it's always fascinating to get other people's take on it. And it's one reason I don't ask Callie for advice ever, because she's just like, well, you have one choice or the other. Do one or the other. And I'm like, okay. No,
just literally.
Do it. No, I'm like, okay, thank you for nothing. But you two could call each other and have that pep talk and it would resonate. You'd be like, oh yeah, no, I should just do the thing, obviously.
What is one trait about yourself that is aging like fine wine?
I can't answer that.
But you just gave it like 2 seconds. We can edit out pauses.
No, okay, so here's the thing. So is underneath all that grit and all that strength that you guys see, I still lack confidence and still second guess myself and still like, am I a good teacher? Do they like me? Well, why don't I get like, oh no, I don't know. I can't answer that.
Just having this conversation, I am really struck by the similarities between your and Callie's thought process.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
It is really fun.
I'm feeling seen, actually.
There seems to be...
I had no idea we were that much alike.
I didn't either.
Me neither. This is a surprise for everyone.
Yeah.
You seem to dwell more in the binary than many people. It's this,
which blows Emily's mind, by the way. We're discovering this as well.
What do you mean by binary?
Like, there's the right thing to do or the wrong thing. This will get me closer to the goal. This will not. Choose this or that.
Oh, I'm more black and white?
That's also a way of saying it, which I know about you.
The only thing about being black, so here, I would agree that I'm very black and white on what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. But what I always cautious when people use that term, I'm not black and white on how people should live their own lives.
See, this is what I'm getting to. So
good job.
Sorry.
You uncovered it.
You did it
like
yourself.
A therapist right now.
What I've noticed as you've gotten older, because I think that is a superpower, the black and white. I think it drives things forward. It makes things get done. And it's a gift to the people who rely on you and yourself, your whole community. But the gray seems to pop up more and more for you, which is fun. Like you're able to dabble in the what ifs around the black and white. And let that...
I try very hard.
Inflect or infer into how you then proceed with your black or white choice, which I think
goals
is really
for me
hard.
Still.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that you work at in terms of broadening your perspective, and it makes you a more whole human being and a better role model for everyone. So I would say maybe 15 years ago, because I was cognizant then, it would have been more black and white, and now it's a lot more rainbow. And it's really cool to watch it grow.
Well, and part of it's my kids. Oh, I'll send you a picture of it. I'm so proud of it. So my girlfriend makes cheesecakes.
Yeah.
And I decided I'm going to make a grasshopper cheesecake for her. It is perfect. There's not one crack in this cheesecake. Yeah. Take it to Bob's. I need to get to Bob's house.
Okay, we love you.
Take a picture. Thank you so much.
Love you.
You're welcome. Love you, girls. Take care.
You've been listening to The Real Mom Hub. Our music is by Naomi O'Leary. You can find us on social at The Real Mom Hub. We're not the authority or even very educated on the medical issues discussed. Do your own research, talk to an expert, make your own decisions, and call us if you learn anything new.
If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram, or better yet, subscribe to our newsletter. If you don't, that's fine. We can all move on. Our purpose here is community, so if we've resonated with you, tell a friend.
Thanks for listening.